OK, I'm pleased to say that I'm joined for the next hour by the brilliant Philip Kiszely, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, who was telling me earlier that actually, because I said, Phil, mate, how do I actually say your name? Because I see an S and a Z together, and I think this has been designed to trip me up. This is going to be like a Z sound or a sound. You know, it's going to be something that's not in my sort of normal parlance. And you said, actually, that bit's not the problematic bit. Just get rid of the whole last bit.
It is. It's a Hungarian surname, and you can only really pronounce it properly if you've got a really deep Hungarian voice. And the correct pronunciation is Kiszely, which is a bit odd in Bury and Manchester, where I'm from. So I just say Kiszely. Kiszely. That's it. You've got it. Perfect.
I've got a deep Hungarian voice.
You're a macho Hungarian.
Yes.
Fantastic.
One day I'll be competing in the shot put and winning all the golds. Right, now let us talk about, well, trouble I think is in store for Yvette Cooper, because it's sort of like damned if you do, damned if you don't on this one. The court ruling against Epping Forest Hotel, the Bell Hotel, saying that actually it should be shut down, the migrants should be moved on. If she doesn't challenge it, it sets a case precedent, which is going to essentially create a blueprint, I'd imagine, for similar cases up and down the country. And then they're going to end up in one hell of a difficulty, because they're going to have tens and hundreds, thousands of men, and really nowhere to put them, because what they're not going to do is stick them on a Hercules and ping them back from whence they came. But if she challenges this, if she actually says the rights of these men who have broken into the country outstrip, outweigh and trump the rights of the locals, I mean, that is not good optics, to say the least.
Well, it's just one of those things that we're in this situation, and it's insane that we're in this situation. We should never have been there in the first place. This is, you know, this is year upon year, decade upon decade of open borders, mass immigration, total stupidity, putting our own people at risk. We don't know who these men are. They, you know, they have this habit of tearing up their documents in the middle of the English Channel, and here we are. Now, yes, if you're absolutely right, Alex. If she says, right, okay, let's, you know, if they are put out into the community, God knows what's going to happen, okay? That is catastrophic.
But actually, that's almost their resort, isn't it? By sticking these men into houses of multiple occupancy. I find that harrowing as a woman. I am no fan of the migrant hotels. But the idea that you might have 6 of them to a house, I mean, I've just bought my first home. It turns out the property next to mine is for sale. If it turned out that the local authority bought that, and then I went home tomorrow and found 6 Somalis camped up next door, that would essentially just destroy my life.
All right, well,
it'd be awful.
In a way, that's kind of what's happened to me, right? I moved a year ago. I live in this lovely Georgian square. 2 roads across the road, there is a house that is full of asylum seekers. Now, nobody knew. Okay, all of a sudden, one day, they appeared there. So there are so many issues around this. I mean, there's obviously safety for women and girls. It changes the shape of the environment, the community. It changes because people all of a sudden become wary, okay? Because there are strangers here. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they've come from. Okay, so there is this situation then that the government not only are acting on a dreadful policy that's been there for years and years and years, and it isn't their policy, but it is their ethos. They are open borders. They are international socialists. It's down to them. And now they are putting the rights of men from barbaric cultures, from Middle Eastern cultures, from places like Mogadishu, who think of women and not only as second-class citizens but as objects. They are putting the wants and needs of those men first. They are giving them money, they're giving them mobile phones, they're giving them cards with money on them.
If they're in a hotel, and I'm totally against them being in hotels, but at least you have a sense. I mean, I think, frankly, if they're going to be in those hotels, they should be locked inside those hotels. They should be treated like detention centres. But at least there's a sense that you see the sort of exits and egresses. You see the passage of people going in and out. Far harder, one imagines, to, you know, kidnap people and bring them back home, or, you know, bring in hauls of drugs. I mean, yeah, it's one thing about the delivery scooters. But when they're put in these private residences, there's also the argument, isn't there, that people say, oh, well, these people have come from war-torn countries. Well, great. They're probably pretty traumatised. They have seen the sharp end of a machete. You know, you don't know what's going on in their head. You don't know what their psychological disposition is. They're hardly sitting there singing Kumbaya and knitting kitten embroidery, are they?
Well, no. I mean, yeah, they are often psychologically damaged, but most of them are actually coming from France, aren't they? Well, they're all coming from France. They are not coming from a war-torn country. They're coming from France. Now, you might not want to live in France, you know, so you come over here. So there are so many negative aspects to this story. But really, like, look, my father came to Britain in 1959. He was a political refugee. He spent 3 years in a refugee camp, okay? It was fine. He was perfectly okay. He spent 3 years in a refugee camp in Rome. Post-war, here, people pretty much lived in prefabs and refugee camp type situation because there was no housing. It was the post-war population.
I remember on my school estate, I went to a crumbling Victorian high school and we had to have a load of prefab classrooms when the other ones were leaking or burning.
Yeah, why can we not take these men away from vulnerable women and children and put them in refugee camps ready for deportation?
What I don't understand is this, you know, you rightly mentioned France, where they live in bin bag bivouacs in those sand dunes. They live in makeshift accommodation. If you look at Greece, they're lucky if they get a foam mat on the floor in a big concrete hangar. The other day, I went to one of those massive storage units. They have a huge sort of labyrinthine subterranean bowel to them, those storage units. And they're sort of all electrified and well air conditioned, well lit, you know, quite big containers that are all secured. And I thought to myself, if these storage units are everywhere all around the country, they're popping up like nobody's business. Why can't we just convert one of those?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think these storage units actually even have, some people actually do live in them, don't they? And turn them into sort of recording studios and stuff. A lot of them have toilet facilities. But also, you know, during COVID, do you remember all the hoo-ha about creating Nightingale hospitals? Oh, how quickly they could build something with a load of camp beds to treat people who might be shuffling off the end of their mortal coil. You know, actual British people facing, you know, terminal disease, or that's what they thought they were preparing themselves for. But when it comes to this lot, no, you can't give them a camp bed in makeshift accommodation that is secured. No. They have to have cleaned rooms and buffet breakfasts and entertainment, so they're all made to feel so happy. I don't understand how Britain ended up, in my mind, being totally alone in this approach in all of Europe. Are there other European countries doing this? Are there other European countries going, come here, we'll put you in a hotel?
No.
Because I think if there were, all these people wouldn't be crossing the channel. They'd be going there.
No, I mean, Germany wasn't it, because of post-war guilt, and then it stopped because of all the atrocities and all of the rapes and all of the assaults, and you know about this because you made a film. You made a film for the New Culture Forum about all of this.
Yeah.
I think there are two things here, right? One, I think this is a national emergency, okay? We are getting, a couple of weeks ago, we had nearly 1,000 coming over in one day, 1,000 young men coming over in boats in one day, okay? So what we need to do, I mean, this is so simple. We need to remove the incentive.
Yeah.
Okay? Get rid of the incentive. I know I sound like Nigel Farage here, but he's absolutely right. He is 100% right.
The French have been saying this for so long. You know, when we bang on about we're giving the French all this money and they're not... The French are like, but hold on, right? You want us to do a job for you. Why are you there like a big flashing welcome here? You get all this stuff. Why are you the El Dorado to these criminals? We're not. You know, you need to stop doing that. And the French have a point. We might, under international law, be obligated to make sure these people don't die at sea. Although I find myself, if you're going to take your life into your own hands, whether it's skydiving, playing on railway lines, or getting in a dinghy over the channel, that's your agency.
Yeah, that's your own.
We may have an international obligation to make sure that they're not just rough sleeping. And actually, it would be a terrible situation. It would not help things if they were rough sleeping, because they'd be out on the rob and it'd be, you know, dirty and it'd be awful. I don't want to see those sort of huge sort of tenting cameras that you get in America and Ireland. But our only obligation, surely, is as far as the Greek go, which is a foam mat on the floor and somewhere to go to the loo. You know, it isn't saying to the people of wherever it may be, whichever leafy suburb, your local hotel where your nan used to stay for Christmas, or where you went to celebrate Sheila's 50th birthday, is now going to have 400 of these random characters. You're going to be paying for it. And what's more, they're going to be given all these perks and privileges in the local area that you can't afford for your own family.
Exactly. But it's this thing, it's this chattering class, upper middle class thing which says we are responsible for every waif and stray in the world, and we are not.
Yeah.
And we put ourselves, it's some kind of bizarre self-torturous etiquette, isn't it? We put ourselves second, and our children, especially if you know, I'm very familiar with places like Manchester, Bury, Bolton, Rotherham, all of those places in the north where I'm from. You know, we put our children and women second there. You know, their safety just goes out of the window because we have this elite kind of obsession with race, with the other, with putting the kind of noble savage, that's not me talking, that's them talking, on a pedestal, and thinking how terrible we are, and we have this terrible guilt for some reason, and it's about empire for some reason. What guilt? Was the most benign empire in the world, okay? Compare it to the Ottoman Empire, we're responsible for slavery. No, we're not. The whole world operated... We're responsible for abolishing it.
And it's still happening today, largely in the countries where these people are coming from.
Yeah, and so, but I suppose the point I'm making is that this guilt that these people feel, and it's an indulgence as well, it's about virtue, it's a toxic combination of guilt and narcissistic virtue. We really must dump all of that stuff, say absolutely no. Our culture is not predicated on guilt. We've got nothing to be guilty about. The reason places like Hungary, Poland, all of those places, they just have no truck with it because their culture is predicated on tragedy. They have tragic histories, and they don't want to repeat it.
But
so
also, a lot of these people who stand there reviewing and guarding all of these men coming over on small boats as equals and deserving of the same privileges, and who should be accorded the same sort of empathy, they've not been to the countries these people are from.
Absolutely not. No.
And if some of these people, women especially, were to spend just one afternoon walking the streets of Syria, walking the streets of Afghanistan, walking the streets of Mogadishu, they might suddenly have a big wake-up call at quite what they're letting into the country. But equally, this idea, a lot of these men, if they really are the world's poorest, which they are not, if they can afford to pay people traffickers vast sums of money, they're the middle classes in these countries. But, you know, a substantial number of these men will have come from places where there's no electricity or running water and makeshift accommodation. That's what they're used to. And as someone who has lived in Africa a lot, right, so I've travelled around quite a fair amount of Africa. I've lived in Ghana, I've lived in Kenya. In Kenya, you go to Nairobi, you've got glittering towers, sushi restaurants, champagne bars and all the rest of it. Great capital city. But you go down to the Masai Mara and they're seeing who can jump the highest and making, you know, makeshift shelters out of cow dung and wearing a lion's neck on their bonds. You know, even in Kenya, you've got this huge diversity of expectation. And if you were to take a Masai warrior from the Mara and dump him in a glittering tower in Nairobi, he'd be like, I don't know what to do, I don't belong here, I want to go home and, you know, carry on being a nomadic tribesman.
Absolutely, right. And there are other things that come into this. Just while you were talking about that, okay, we are bringing in people into probably one of the most sophisticated societies ever. Okay,
exactly.
From honour-based tribal societies, and these men. As I say, they don't view women as second-class citizens, they view them as objects covered up. And when they see women with blonde hair who aren't covered up, frankly, they go berserk, you know, because it is completely new to them.
It is exotic.
That is a danger. That is a young male who is excited like that is a danger.
And you try and explain, as you said, to these people the sophistication of, say, how British people know how to queue. There's so much, like you said,
really
innate etiquette in Britain that, you know, even if you go over to France, you think, well, you're rude, or, you know, Spain, or Italy, you know, even when you go to our Western neighbours, Brits often look at them and think, you know, you shouldn't do things like that. You know, we have, like you said, a sort of a codified subliminal system of living as a society in Britain that you can't just absorb. You know, you have to have been brought up with it. And particularly, like you said, those sexual mores. One thing I've noticed when it comes to, because, you know, I was having this debate with someone the other day and they're saying, well, but white men, you know, can sexually harass and abuse women. Of course they can. But there's a big difference, right, between men in a van who sort of wolf whistle or shout something out a window, which doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me because that van is here and then it's gone. They're not physically in my presence. They're not about to park up. They're not going to follow me down the street. They know, I know, we all know, everyone observing it knows this is harmless fun because it's just existed since time immemorial and you just know that. That's the unwritten understanding. These men from other cultures, they don't take no for an answer. They pursue. They get in your face. They're persistent. That's what it is, especially. It is the persistence and it's the physical proximity. They will come really close to you. You're beautiful. I want to be your friend. Give me your number. Where are you going? I want your... You know, mad things. I want your babies. Can you imagine a white guy going up to the pub being like, I want your babies. Like, no.
These are, well, we never used to have this kind of thing. These are alien cultural practices, as, you know, as is throwing acid in someone's face, as is running around with a machete. Those are completely alien to British culture. And yet you walk out there near London Bridge and, my God, you know, you might see that. So that's one thing. There's another thing here, isn't there? And we're talking about women and children especially, but there's also Jews as well, right? And so if you walk out on any town on a Saturday in particular, when there are all of these hate marches there, in the Middle East, this anti-Semitism is baked into that culture in an incredible way, and we are bringing it over here. What are there, about 200,000 Jews in this country? Yeah, something like that. Jewish women, I absolutely know, Jewish women feel terrified on the streets because they are just fair game. They are hated. And it's the elites in the institutions, the Corbynistas, the Guardianistas, or, you know, all of those people, they facilitate this, you know, the Your Party people, the pro-Palestine people, they absolutely facilitate the anti-Semitism, and it's shocking. So we've got all of these things happening in this very fractured culture. Let's not even mention trans and gender politics, and these people are coming into it. How the hell are they going to understand it?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's a madness. It's a social experiment that is doomed to fail. Yeah, is failing. Has gone wrong. Right, listen, we're going to take a short break now, but Philip and I are going to be back with some statistics on how many of us think the country is in a bad state. Hello there, welcome back to the show. Now, we teased before the break that there are some statistics out. There's been a survey done of the great British public on what people think about the state of the nation. Guess how many Brits say that the UK is in a bad state?
It's a lot.
It's 8 in 10. I want to know who the 2 in 10 are. Who are these 20% who go, nah, it's all great? It's brilliant.
I think it's 84 out of 100. So bearing in mind that Keir Starmer has only been in office, what, for about 15 months, something like that? It's catastrophic. It's extraordinarily bad. I can't think of another government that has been so utterly car crash, clown car crash terrible in my lifetime, and I'm 54 years old. It's extraordinary. I cannot for the life of me see how they're going to last to 2029. Can you? I can't see how he's going to last to the end of the week, and it's Thursday.
I know, right? No, it's true. I mean, the latest rumour is that they're going to have to go cap in hand to the IMF, as France is also potentially going to have to do. But I mean, it is quite extraordinary. So this was a survey done by YouGov. So fully 82% of Britons consider the UK to be in a bad state. 36% who see it as being in a very bad state. 14% think it's all right. Just 1% say it's more than all right. I mean... Who are those people?
They're the ones wearing the lovely jackets with their arms
they're the ones living. They're the ones living in the Bell Hotel in Epping Forest, getting the free yoga lessons and all-you-can-eat buffet breakfasts, no doubt. But I mean, it's utterly, it's shocking. And you know, the other day, I mean, this morning actually, my other half was showing me this table of crime statistics, the safest counties around the UK, and there's a league table, and he was bragging that Wiltshire is at the bottom because that's where he lives. He's like, there you go, you know, Wiltshire, no one's there. If we could just take out sort of Swindon, that, you know, wouldn't even make the table at all. And then when you looked through the table of it's done by Police Force of the most crimes per capita, you could, I fancy, very easily transpose a heat map over a similar map which breaks down demography. And what you would find very easily is those areas with the highest levels of immigration are the most crime-ridden.
Yes. Well, and now we know, because we're getting some kind of sense of nationality, aren't we, with the stats now? This is this whole big thing, isn't it? We know who are committing the crimes and the particular kinds of crimes that they're committing. Look, I was in Manchester a couple of months ago, and I was walking through the city, and I grew up there. You know, it's a place I don't even recognise.
Manchester
anymore.
worse than London, apparently, according to said table.
Okay, so I was walking through. It was full of Asian lads with masks on and black tracksuits hanging around, looking intimidating. There was a woman squatting in a doorway and defecating. Right, this is in the city centre.
Come on.
There was a couple arguing in a foreign language, and they looked as though they were about to hit each other, and they had a baby in a pram, all of that kind of stuff. And I walked through, and I just thought that it never used to be like this, because we had some kind of social cohesion, right? You can't bring 1 million people into the country every single year and expect everything to be okay.
I didn't realise they've had to put signs up on Bournemouth Beach saying, please don't curl one out on the sand. I mean, you know, so I lived in Ghana. I also happened to live in Manchester once upon a time. Near, on the border, I lived in Bernage.
Yeah, Bernage. Yeah, Oasis territory,
but it was actually just on the sort of the far end border, near to Longsight, and Longsight was a pretty fresh place.
It's a pretty tough area.
But I used to go to Longsight and really enjoy going to all the exotic food markets, because I lived in Ghana and India and so on and so forth, and like cooking some pretty out there cuisine. But when I lived in Ghana, for instance, you know, you'd go. There's beautiful beaches in Ghana, and certainly the beaches in Accra, Labadi Beach is, you know, party time, lots of people trying to rob you and grope you, but it's a clean beach, and it's got, you know, little eateries and so on and so forth. You go further west and the beaches get more and more beautiful because they're more untouched, but they're used by the locals as the toilet. You know, a lot of people live in these villages and they go down to crouch on the sand to relieve themselves.
That's all they've ever known.
And that is because they don't have a flushing loo. And so you bring people here and watch it, you know, they're going to be on the sitting on the beach. I mean, it's...
The thing is, you look at these stats and you say, well, first of all, you say, who the hell are the 2% who think it's okay? But for me, it's the city centres, and it isn't just Manchester. Manchester is obvious, London is obvious, but it's any kind of small city centre. Some of the smaller ones are worse. Some of those northern, you know, Batley, Dewsbury, Huddersfield, those places are just so lost. They're so poverty-stricken. They are so blighted by multiculturalism. Now, the thing is, there's a sense of menace, there's a sense of violence about just walking in the streets now. And again, that never used to be there. And again, that comes with mass immigration, that comes with incompatible cultures, that comes with young men hanging around. There's a sense of the civility has gone.
I tell you one thing that I noticed the other day, because I've just moved back to Gloucestershire. Very, very high trust neighbourhood. I mean, it's sort of in the sticks. Most of my neighbours say moo. And it's just lovely. I already know basically everybody from the whole village. And everyone sees me and goes, all right, new girl. And it's wonderful. And, you know, I just find myself walk to town, I do this, I'm on the phone, you know, it's... just coming back to London, I got off the tube last night, and I'm staying at the moment in a really nice part of London, not in Earl's Court where I used to stay, which once upon a time, just 4 years ago, was half all right, and is now some sort of gauntlet of doom. But I was actually staying in a nice, affluent, safe very sort of middle England part of London. But I still found myself getting off the tube and immediately that knot is in my stomach. I feel that pinch, my breath's gone shallow. I haven't got earphones in, my phone's in the handbag. I'm looking over my shoulder, I'm monitoring who's around, where will I go? Should I take a cut through over this park? You know, sitting on the tube, you know, when I finish the show late at night and you're sitting there, you're looking at everyone on the tube carriage.
Exactly.
Is one of them going to go Tonto in a minute? Is there a weirdo on here? Is there... I mean, Samara, my producer, and I took the tube together last night at Westminster Station. Because we were going in the same direction, and we saw, you know, basically a ne'er-do-well, a sort of slightly crazed-looking man from a far-flung climate, sort of, you know, ranting and raving and rambling about on the tube, and you just think, well, let's not get on that train. And I had forgotten, you know, I've only been in Gloucestershire for 3 weeks, but I'd forgotten what that
feels
knot
like
in the pit of my stomach felt like until I came back. And even if nothing happens to you, living with that jeopardy.
You're changed, you're different, aren't you? And we shouldn't have to do that. I mean, this has got, well, you see the stats, it's got so much worse over the last 5 years, but it's been getting worse really since 1997. Now there's things are changing though, right? Because we've got these statistics here, so we can have this conversation and say, look, well, everybody else feels the same. And that is a shift actually, because if we were having this conversation 2-3 years ago, all the right-on elite types would be phoning up and saying, you are racist, you are racist. What? For being a woman who doesn't want to be frightened in the city at night, for being someone who doesn't want to be attacked in the street, for actually harking back to something that was better, because one, it was safer, two, people could communicate with each other, and there wasn't this sense of, and this is the thing for me, Alex, right? I look at people and I think, are you unhinged? Are you mad?
Are you going to
do something?
Yeah, the other day, again, leafy neighbourhood in London, I took a photograph because there was a guy standing in a churchyard. They're surrounded by police. There were about 3 cop cars, and then it ended up being just 1 cop car, but 4 police standing around trying to manage this guy who was effing and blinding and shouting, making a big scene, all saying to him, calm down, be quiet, you know. And my other half said, well, why don't you go and ask them what's going on? I was like, I don't want to walk into that.
You don't want to get involved.
I don't know what he's going to do.
I mean, one of the things about this, while you were just saying that, I keep thinking about this flags thing that's happening, you know, the Operation Raise the Colours. And this is people, in a way, it's kind of putting their foot down, isn't it? And saying, no, actually, we want to assert our identity.
Yeah, don't forget who this land belongs to.
And it's a very simple protest, but the fact pretty much everybody is doing it. I was walking down the street where I live the other day, and in someone's back garden, a Union flag and a cross of St George. It's an incredibly powerful way of saying, no.
But it's also it's so very British and very beautiful because it's quite sophisticated. It's playing the opposition at their own game.
Yes.
The ones who, as we heard earlier from Jeremy Kyle, the Essex Council, saying, well, if you've been traumatised by seeing the St George's Cross, we're going to offer you special, you know, safe spaces, all the rest. You know, what's her face, Emily Thornberry, sneering during the Rochester by-election of, was it 2015 or 2014? You know, someone hanging a cross of St George outside their house. It's basically saying, OK, I dare you to come and tell us that we are not allowed our own nation's flag. Go on, do it.
It's asserting yourself. And of course, the juxtaposition there, you know, our own flags, our own culture, which speaks to us, versus what's the other real symbol of really what they're about? Is the Palestinian flag, isn't it? You know, they're all over the place, and they were flying immediately after October the 7th. Places like Tower Hamlets, for example, who are now saying these flags are dangerous, they're awful, take them down. They were happy to fly the Palestinian flag, and that is a symbol of a country that's going, this country that's going wrong. It's a balkanized state, you know, it's a separation. I mean, it's such a deep separation, isn't it? A philosophical separation. So let's get rid of all that and let's start flying our own flag. And if they tell us that it's poisonous, if they tell us that the colour of our skin is poisonous, if they tell me that I'm a poison, you know, I've got poisonous masculinity, we can just say no. We just push back now because there are so many of us, and we can actually feel safe in numbers. There is safety in numbers, and we can really begin
are the
to
majority.
take
We
it
mustn't
back.
forget that.
Yeah, but we mustn't be silent. If you're a silent majority, you might as well not be there.
That's true.
And that's the point.
Let's read some messages, actually, because I've only just sort of clicked the right buttons on my screen to make them appear. Paula in Southampton says, I've just come back from visiting my local restaurant in Southampton. Unfortunately, it's next to and above the restaurant is an immigration hotel. The effect this is having on the restaurant is unreal. They've lost 25% in revenue. They have to escort female staff to their cars at night in fear. This restaurant has always flourished. It's really sad to see. I mean, this is the thing. Now, you know, when estate agents will tell you the unspoken rule of the house prices up and down is immigration.
But the thing, I mean, that must never become normalised. That must never become normalised. We must always, again, as I say, we must always push back on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'd say the restaurant was called Chino, I think, or Ceno, don't know how you say it, C-E-N-O, in Southampton. If you live in Southampton, pay them a visit. Yeah. Go and give them your support. Has anyone thought about how much easier it will be for the migrants to coerce young girls into houses of multiple occupancy where they could be drugged, raped and or sexually abused instead of a hotel? Yes, I have. That is my big concern here. Because when these men, when no one's watching them come in and out, when they're not sharing bedrooms, when they got their own front door keys in quiet neighbourhoods and there's nobody monitoring them, they will be trying to get these teenage girls back to their houses. It is so dangerous.
Well, this is what we had with the Pakistani heritage rape gangs, isn't it? You know, coercing girls, bringing them back, drugging them, plying them with drink and taking them upstairs above a kebab shop or down in a basement below a kebab shop, you know, where it's quiet, where it's private. Again, that is a big issue.
Give a sex pest a lair and he's going to try and lure people into it. It's very easy. Becca in Norfolk makes a very interesting point. I hope the government does win tomorrow. I'd rather know where these criminals are than in houses around my town. I'd actually love them in a field in tents and guard dogs, but we won't get that with Labour. I mean, with Beck all the way. I almost say be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Because when all these hotels close down, where have these people gone? They've fallen into the cracks of society, and in many respects it's worse. Ali says turn Marston into a porter cabin or tent city to house the migrants. It was fine during COVID to have 20,000 lorries and drivers stuck there for days on end. Why can't that be done? Exactly. During COVID, they closed all of the service stations, even the public bathrooms that lorry drivers used. They couldn't even go and buy a sandwich. There was nowhere to wash. My dad was a lorry driver for most of his life. He slept in the back of his cabin.
As they do.
Yeah. 5 nights a week, he slept in the back of his cabin. And why do these men somehow need to be staying in the Ritz? It's crazy. It's crazy. Right, we better take a short break because we'll start losing all of our timings. But don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the Home Office's incentives to try and bring down the backlog of asylum claims. And it doesn't make for pretty reading. That's after this. Hello, welcome back. Interesting point here, and I totally agree with this. I was just saying go and support the restaurant Chino in Southampton because they're really having a hard time because of their new neighbours. So go and show them that you're going to stand by their side. But conversely, I agree with this. Paul in Northern Ireland says if and when migrants leave the hotels, everyone should boycott every hotel that housed migrants, slap it into them and let them go bust for their greed.
It's a great point.
I think it's a great
really good point. Yeah. I think we should be doing more of this stuff. We need to be... what I like about the flags thing, it's kind of performative activism, isn't it? And as the silent majority, as the kind of conservative middle right, we tend to kind of balk at that, don't we? And that's what the other side do. They create all of the fuss. They do all of the stupid things.
And the boycotts
and all of that. No, we've got to speak with our wallets, okay? We've got to be heard, that's the point, and we've got to be seen to do those things as well. That's the only way we get things done.
I
because
agree.
The people who really call the shots here are the absolute minority. They are the identitarian, wokerati, the guardianistas and all that. They're a tiny percentage.
I would love to see a list of all the big hotel owners who have allowed their hotels to become migrant hotels, because I would imagine not many of them are British nationals. Talking about speaking with their wallets, the Home Office agree with you. That is a great way to go about things, apparently, because they're going to be paying civil servants 75 quid bonuses per asylum case that they've rushed through. So basically, they can earn extra 350 quid a month by increasing the amount of cases they approve or reject. This is to cut the backlog. Now, first of all, I am sick to death with incentives being given for people just doing their blimmin' job. You're paid by the taxpayer. You're supposed to be efficient. You shouldn't be sitting at home under a cruddy slanket. Don't ask for more money just to leave your sofa and come to the office, you know, and don't expect by meeting targets that you should get any more money. In fact, the converse should be true. Far too often in the world of, you know, civil service, if people fail at their job, nothing happens. Not in the same way. Yeah,
they get promoted.
Not in the same way in the private sector. Whereas if you're not getting it done, you might find yourself with a pay cutter out the front door. But the big worry about this, of course, is you know what happened. I'm assuming that we know what happens when there's a sort of ticking clock of make sure you get as many people processed as possible just for the optics, just so old Lego head can stand at his lectern and say to the nation, the Labour Party have cut this asylum backlog by 100,000. Yeah, what have you done? You've probably...
It's like me with Kev again. Yeah.
You've probably given them all the right to stay here. In fact, I read some advice from the Refugee Council who have said, how about all the people from the countries which basically automatically get given asylum because they're from those countries? We just do that anyway. And actually, when they come to the country, we immediately give them a house they can rent and a job they can take. I'm like, oh, so which are these countries, pray tell? It is like the who's who of human scum countries. It's the terrorist countries. It's the war-torn countries. It's the countries where you think, if I let old, you know, Mohammed over here come and, you know, set up shop from wherever it may be, whether it's Sudan, Somalia, Syria, I don't know whether he's one of the people going around slashing open throats or whether he's someone running from that.
Oh, I mean, look, the first priority of any government is to look after its people, right? Number one, 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, top of the agenda. And here we are. It's obscene that they're offering incentives to be shoddy, to rush things through. And how many, because we'll probably get to know at some stage, how many of these things that have been rushed through are going to result in the rape of children, the rape of women, sexual abuse, murder, acid attacks, and God knows what. You talk about the violence of this, and, you know, I've been on the receiving end of that. I was stabbed in Manchester.
You were?
Yeah, but a long time ago, 20 years ago, by a gang of Somalis. And so this... in some respects, this is nothing new, right?
What,
but
did they
in
just
other
jump
respects, they jumped me. A gang of 6 of them.
On the rob, trying to nick you?
To nick my phone, OK? The difference between then and now is I was just walking home late one night. It was raining. It was a summer night, and I didn't think anything was going to happen.
Sketchy part of town, or?
It was on Wilmslow Road in Manchester near Plattfields. You probably know it.
Yeah, not that sketchy, really.
No, right. But
I mean, I sort of place I would walk.
But here's the point, right? At that time, I didn't think that was going to happen to me, right? Now, I would assume that that's going to happen to me. There is no way I'd walk through Manchester on my own late at night. Once in the back and once in the buttock. So I had to sit for a week, sat in state with one cheek off a chair.
You know, they bring knives to the party every time. It's a very stabby culture. I'm sorry, it is a stabby culture.
It's a stabby culture. It's always been a stabby culture. And if you're bringing people from Somalia, Mogadishu, the craziest, most dangerous place on earth, if you are bringing them here, not to mention Afghanistan, you are going to get problems. You are going to put your own society, your own people at risk. And as I say, the first priority is not to do that. And yet they do that over and over again. And they think it's virtuous. This is the problem, right? They think it's virtuous. They think they're doing the right thing. They're putting these poor people first. They're economic migrants, OK? It's as simple as that.
No, exactly.
And they're preying on women.
I'm beginning to also say they're also sexual migrants, some of these men, because I think a big pull factor. I mean, the people traffickers are advertising their services by using videos of British girls on a night out. And then you see some of the videos that these TikTok migrant influencers are making, and they're the ones sitting on Bournemouth Beach doing the whole, look at all the ladies in the bikinis. Of course they are, because back then they hadn't even seen someone's face for 20 years. Talking about countries where you don't see a woman's face, Afghanistan. So there's going to be, I know, as soon as Lego Head comes back from his sojourn, is sort of, break glass emergency leaver statement. It was Liz Truss at one point to be like, we're Liz Truss in the economy. Now he's going to say Farage wants to do a deal with the Taliban. He's going to love that, isn't he?
But can I just interject there? The EU are already doing deals with the Taliban, and Germany has already sent 100 of them.
Germany is sending them back. And how are they doing it? With armed escorts, 900 quid handouts. Apparently it took a colossal legal, political and diplomatic juggling act to get the wheels off the ground. They used Qatar as a go-between. The Qataris are fairly decent to us, can I just say. Out of all the people in that neighbourhood, we seem to have a fairly decent relationship with them as an interlocutor. Fine. So let's just do this. If Germany are able to stick 81 Afghans on a Qatar Airways plane at Leipzig, fly them home via Qatar, accompanied by 49 armed Qatari security guards, there were no representatives from Afghanistan or the Taliban, then great. I mean, I'm happy to do that.
I mean,
you can't be like, well, just because we don't like the people in that country running it, better not send people back there. What sort of a nonsense logic is that?
I mean, I'm up and down with reform, because one week they sound brilliant and the next week they sound really flaky. But I thought he was absolutely on form there. I thought he was absolutely right. He's talking, what, 600,000 in 5 years? I think that's absolutely great. He did roll back a little bit because he said, well, we're not talking about women and children. That's fair enough. OK, that's politics. You have to, it is give and take. But he is talking about young men.
Well, there's only about 2 women and children anyway.
There's one child and a granny. That's it.
And I'm happy for them to stay.
But it's amazing, again, that we're talking in these terms, that we're talking remigration, that we're talking deportation. We will be talking voluntary remigration before too long. That's going to come on the table, and the sooner it does, the better, because the Scandinavian countries are already doing that because they're in a terrible situation because of mass immigration. It's just a shame that the plane has to crash into the mountain. We have to get beyond catastrophe. Everybody has to be in danger before we do something about it.
Yeah, it almost has to reach the point that it's very hard to reverse any of this before we go, well, that was a bad idea. OK, we're going to take a cheeky little break now, but when we come back, I mean, the BBC, they just can't help themselves, can they? Anybody in the TV industry these days can't seem to help themselves when it comes to casting for certain things. So we're going to be talking about that after this break. Now, the other day I saw advertised on the BBC that there's a big spangly new historical drama, all based on 1066 and all that, the Norman Conquest. And I'm really fascinated by this period of time. It's not a period of time I know a great deal about. It's a period of time I want to know more about, because there's Normanity, if you will. It runs through my veins. My family are descendants of the Normans. Gloucester Cathedral, where I'm from. I was actually at Durham Cathedral as well. Gloucester Cathedral started being built in the Norman ages. Durham Cathedral, a brilliant, resplendent sort of symbol of Norman architecture. My brother lives down on the south coast, where you've got sort of, Hastings and Battle, and you've got the sort of 1066 walk, and it's such an important time in our history. And I thought, that would be great. I would love to see how we did things back then.
Well, you're not going to know if you watch this, believe me.
All right. So tell me, what are they up to? What are they doing?
This is our old friend colourblind casting, really, here, which is catastrophic, because it isn't colourblind casting. That's a it's racist casting. Because as we know, it only works one way. Okay, you're not going to have a white man like me playing Nelson Mandela in any kind of a drama anytime soon. Okay, so they take massive liberties with historical fact as well. Now, it's a drama, okay? It's not a documentary, and that's what dramas do, because they have to they have to have lines of action. There needs to be conflict. There needs to be resolution. It needs to work on television. It needs to be a television narrative. All of that kind of stuff. That's fine. But if they don't preserve some kind of spirit of truth, which they are not doing here, then it just becomes absolute nonsense.
I find this disgusting I find it insulting. I find it debasing. The Normans, people think they're French. They weren't. They were Vikings. They were Norsemen who came from Scandinavia and invaded France and took over that part of France, and from there levelled an assault against us and did a very good job of it. They were blondes. They looked like me. And you know what? White people are the global minority, and among white people, other than the gingers, we're also the minority. And we got recessive genes. Everyone else outbreeds us, right? You know, you mingle with anyone else, you ain't getting blonde-haired kids. We have a whole host of specific illnesses we deeply enjoy. Asthma and, you know, sickly things like asthma and eczema and, you know, sunburning and things like that. Blonde, I am so sick to death of blondes being appropriated by everyone. Beyonce, Kim Kardashian, all like, you know, the blonde hair. You know, Lady Gaga, all these people being all blonde. And then they have the blimmin' audacity, the one lot of blonde people who came and invaded this country and, you know, spread their wild oats.
To turn them black.
They're now turning them into what? Like Idi Amin or something. Like, come on! Leave us alone. We get to have our own little slither of ancient history.
But the thing with the costume drama is, like you said it before, you want to be taken away. You want to be taken into the past. You want to get rid of. You want to remove yourself from Keir Starmer's Britain, and you want to go somewhere nicer. Okay, but you can't do that with this because it's also got anachronistic language. Okay, so it's got modern kind of London type language.
Oh, well, so it's William the Conqueror coming over with like his ghetto bus going, "Hey, blood," you know, like.
It's doing that kind of thing, and it makes it sound ridiculous. And this is what they all do in all of these dramas now. You know, it's kind of, let's make Shakespeare accessible. It's all, you know, let's do street dance Shakespeare. Let's make Shakespeare accessible. The one thing about Shakespeare is the poetry, the English poetry.
Yes.
It's amazing.
And you have to have it. If you don't have the scansion and the inversion and the assonance and the consonance and the iambic pentameter, it just doesn't make, it's nothing.
But what they're doing with Hamlet at the moment, they're doing exactly the same thing. So Hamlet is ending his soliloquy with the word "in it." You know,
don't.